Hey guys, if you don't know us, I'm Allie,
I'm Ryan.
and we are the leaders of the juniors. So big shout out to my junior girls and my awesome co-lead Colette.
I don't have a co-lead, but shout out to the junior guys. I almost said senior. I'm a junior. You're going to be seniors so soon.
So soon. Ew, I feel old. Gross. I'm sorry we can't be with you guys today, but of course we still wanted to give you our witness all about what we've been talking about the last few weeks, which is trust. We've been learning a lot of great stuff from Kate, and we heard an amazing witness from Susan. So we're not going to be talking so much about specific verses from scripture, but more just giving you our own story and our experience of how our relationship with God has affected our trust in Him over the years. So the way we kind of plan on doing this witness is by kind of taking you briefly through our experiences from high school through where we are now, in our upper 20s. I'm a little bit more in my upper 20s than Ryan.
A little bit. I'm just kidding.
I'm a couple of years older than Ryan, if you guys didn't know. Fun fact. So I'm, reaching 30, which is odd, and Ryan's still in the mid-20s. But I would definitely say our relationship with God has grown not only from our time in high school, but even through the last few years of our marriage. So we'll just talk to you guys a little bit about how that's gone for us.
Yeah, so going through high school for myself, I was always at church. I always went to youth group. I actually was the only one out of my family that went to church on a pretty regular schedule. Both my parents and my siblings weren't super into going to church every single Sunday. We obviously, as a family, would always go on Easter and Christmas, but I made the decision to always go to church on Sundays, and I was at youth group with a lot of my friends from high school as well. Even in doing that, cultivating a relationship with God at the church that I was at, in the youth group I was in, those both were not huge talking points for them. So it wasn't a really big thing that we really focused on or even tried to do while we were together or even in church. It was more of just kind of sitting and listening and not really participating so much. So in that, with high school, there was a lot of times, more so in the younger, maybe junior high school leading into younger years in high school, I experienced a lot of issues with bullying, a lot of issues with just anger with myself. I focused a lot on things that I couldn't control. One of the big things was just how large of a person I was. So back in high school, I don't know if anybody really even knows this other than maybe you. So my junior year, the summer leading into my junior year, I finally broke 100 pounds. So I weighed, say 98 pounds. And I was 5'10", 5'11". It was bad. I was really tall and really skinny, and I had a lot of issues with other students and things. And so I really focused on things that I really necessarily couldn't control so much. Even in ways that people treated me, I would always get very angry, and that would lead into other things in my life that I would get very angry at very quickly. I think Susan had kind of even mentioned it in her last witness that focusing on things that you cannot control can really be a path to a bad place. And that's where I kind of found myself in high school, even though I still was going to church and I still was going to youth group, but I personally wasn't trying to cultivate a relationship with God or even trust in anything other than myself, which really led me to a lot of issues with anger and other things.
For me, when I was in high school, I struggled massively with anxiety and just really low self-esteem. It's kind of funny, the opposite of Ryan in a sense with body image. I was always tall. Now I've evened out to about average, but when I was in late middle school, early high school, I was a lot taller than all the other girls. I'm a little bit more athletically built, I guess, than a lot of girls, and all I wanted was to be cute and tiny and have all the boys have crushes on me. And that is just not how my experience was. And so I just really struggled a lot with loving myself and loving the person that I was. And I couldn't accept these things about myself, things that I obviously could not change. And so these thoughts kind of just were constantly in my head, these negative emotions. And I didn't turn to God to deal with these. Even though I went to youth group all the time, I went to mass all the time. Kate the Great was my youth group leader. Even though I thought I had a decent relationship with God, I wasn't turning to Him when I really needed Him the most. I wasn't putting my trust in Him. And I wasn't letting go and letting God, as they say, and as Ryan was talking and Susan was talking about before, I wasn't just giving up what I didn't have control over. And looking back on my life, I didn't even realize it so much at the time, but I just really was holding on to all these things. I thought that I had to fix everything. about my life and my situation. And we just can't do that. We have to turn to God. And that's something that I've definitely realized more over the years, as we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's very similar. I mean, that's kind of two different situations, but a very
Yeah.
similar outcome.
And I think that just goes to show, like, Ryan and I are a little bit farther removed from high school now, but those emotions are so real in us still. And we know that even though you guys all, of course, have very different situations, everyone feels anger, everyone feels anxiety and depression at times. It's something that everyone deals with.
Yeah, and dealing with all of those things from high school. Both of us go to college, ended up being at the same place. It's actually how we met, being resident assistants together. And we met each other. There's a whole big story if anybody wants to know about the whole relationship beginning. It's a great story. But so we started forming a relationship with each other and trying to cultivate that relationship. Led to us getting engaged, obviously being married now. But in that, we kind of both learned how to trust other people. And then with that also, we began cultivating a relationship not only between ourselves, but between ourselves and God as well. From me as an individual standpoint, you as an individual standpoint, and then us as a couple standpoint, which has really led to a lot of times that things would have been very difficult to deal with or difficult to handle alone or even together. Being able to put that trust in God and just knowing that there's somebody else that's kind of on your team, it really does make a big difference.
And I'll say for sure, even though our relationship with each other has obviously grown, our relationship with God has grown throughout our lives, that doesn't mean that we've had perfect lives and that we've not had struggle. I just feel that the more trust we've put in God over the years, the more we are better able to handle these situations. Like even, for example, when Ryan and I got married, it was just a few months before we got married, and we both kind of had like, oh my goodness, what the heck are we doing? Breakdowns.
No jobs.
Yeah.
No idea where we're going to live.
I was finishing up grad school in a career that I knew I didn't want to go into, so I really had no idea what kind of job I could even get after that. Plus, I had just taken on quite a lot of debt. Ryan was working in a job that he wasn't happy in and making very, very little money. So we just really had no idea where we were going to live, how we were financially going to be able to make it. But more than anything, we wanted to be married. We knew it was the right time for us to be married. And we put our faith in God that it would all work out. And thankfully, just a couple months before we got married, actually, Ryan got a much better job. I figured out what I was going to do not long after we got married. And so it all really worked out. And that was something that, even though we did stress about it a little bit, we really didn't let it take control of us. We really kind of just let go and let God, and we're just like, yeah, whatever happens.
We very much so worked hard
yeah.
to put ourselves in a good position, but we also were not, we definitely didn't just do nothing.
Yeah.
But we trusted that we would be okay. We trusted that we would be taken care of, and that we were just going to work hard, put our trust in God, and it's put us in a very, it definitely put us in a better position now than we were in.
Yeah. But I think that's a huge point that sometimes people might miss. They say trust in God, or they hear people say trust in God, and they think that means do nothing. That's not the case at all. Of course, God puts many opportunities in our lives. We are supposed to work hard. We're supposed to give back to the community, but we're supposed to work hard for ourselves as well. And God's just not going to drop some money down on us like the manna in the desert. That's just not going to happen. So we really need to do whatever we can in whatever situation we're in, to do whatever we can to improve a situation, but leave the rest to God. Focus on what you can control and leave the rest to Him. That's a huge point I want to make. And we won't go on too much more. There's a million examples we could give about how our relationship with God has grown, how our trust in God has grown. But I'll bring you up very much to speed with something that we are going through currently. So Ryan and I have been married for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in April.
Yeah.
And we have not been blessed with a child at this point. And we've been trying this whole time. So we're kind of at the point where we're not really sure why that is. I don't have any definitive answers, so I can't say anything for sure. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I have really bad days. Just kind of dealing with this. I'm at the age where not necessarily a lot of my close personal friends are having kids, but a lot of people I know, a lot of people I see on Instagram are having their first and second kids. And since that is something that we both want very much right now, that can be really hard to see. And like I said, like I have bad days with this. But I know myself, and I know that if I were going through this situation just even a few years ago, I would be like an emotional wreck, honestly. But I have Ryan, who is very much supportive of me and our lives together. And I know that no matter what happens with us, even if we cannot have children naturally, like we will definitely adopt. And so I know we will be parents in some way. But this is something that, like I said, if I had to deal with this even just a few years ago, I don't think I would have been able to handle it. So I've really been able to look back and see how my relationship with God has grown and how my trust in Him has really grown.
Yeah, and a lot of that just comes down to talking to God. We try to pray in a way together, talking about the things that we're thankful for the day. There is something to be said about just feeling like somebody like God, somebody that's a little bit bigger than you or I or all of us is kind of in your corner with you. So it does make some difficult situations a bit more bearable.
Thank you guys so much for watching our video. Hopefully it works.
The point conveys across.
Yeah, hopefully our point comes across. And definitely let us know if you have any questions at all. Even though we're leaders of the juniors, we would love to get to know more students in the youth group. And yeah, definitely just feel free to talk to us anytime. We're always here for you guys. We love you very much. And we'll see you next week. Bye.